You're playing music today?
Yes, yes.
Oh, nice. We're so lucky.
This is the leader of the Hawaiians.
No. It is this guy.
No. If it was, that's not the case.
Members of the legislature, honored guests, please be seated.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Dr. Salah. Welcome to the Senate Chamber of the Hawaiʻi State Capitol for the service of remembrance for the late Senate President and former Congresswoman Colleen Wakako Hanabusa, who was born on May 4th, 1951 in Honolulu, Hawaii, and passed this life on March 6, 2026. She will be remembered as a brilliant and formidable figure whose Waianae roots were at the heart of who she was as an attorney, lawmaker, advocate, daughter, wife, aunt, friend, and dog mom. Thank you for honoring us with your presence this morning. I am Carol Taniguchi, Chief Clerk of the Senate. We now clear a path with a traditional Hawaiian blessing, asking for permission, protection, and inspiration. For this, we have Roth Puahala from the Office of Senate President Ronald Kochi. Thank you, Mr. Puahala. Next, we have Reverend Jeffrey Soga, resident minister of the Waipahu Waianae Honganji Mission and chaplain for the Honolulu Police Department, to offer a Buddhist opening and invocation.
May the wisdom of the all-compassionate one, so shine within our hearts and minds, that the mist of error and the foolish vanity of self may be dispelled. So shall we understand the changing nature of existence and reach spiritual peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Let us live with kindness and gratitude beyond words. Lamban love, lamban love, lamban love, lamban love, lamban.
Thank you, Reverend Soga. Offering opening remarks this morning is the 14th President of the Hawaiʻi State Senate, Senator Ronald D. Kochi of Kauai and Ni'ihau. Senate President Kochi and 11th President of the Senate, Colleen Hanabusa, had a long-standing relationship as colleagues, political allies, and friends, spanning their mutual time together in the Hawaiʻi State Legislature.
Aloha. I can tell you I didn't write the introduction because my time with Colleen in the Hawaiʻi State Legislature is when I got appointed on September 7th of 2010 until she left for Congress when she won that election. So it was a couple of brief months. And as a county council member, I had very few bills in front of the Judiciary Committee that she was chairing, and didn't have that much interaction with her until I really talked to her, though, in the 2 months I was here to get some guidance, and then when she got elected to Congress. You're going to hear from the other speakers, I think, about how smart she was, how hardworking, and all of the other things, that has been written about her. And in my time, I just want to tell you about a Colleen that I got to know, a Colleen that I got to see up close, firsthand, that was nothing like the person that I thought she was as a council member from Kauai, afraid to come to the Judiciary Committee, or intimidated walking into her office when she was the president and I was simply trying to get a room assignment when I got appointed to the Senate. In her last term in Congress, my eldest son, Dan, was working for Senator Hirono. And without getting into too much of his personal life, what would be a good professional decision was for he or his good friend to leave the office so that he didn't have two people working together. He was fortunate enough to be hired by Colleen and worked for her in those last 2 years she was in Congress. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how Washington, D.C. works, the senators have a much larger staff than the humble members of Congress. And they have enough staff that they're kind of siloed and often are able to get the work done and go home by 6 p.m. One night or afternoon, it's 4 in the afternoon, I get a call from my son and he says, "I'm still in the office, Dad." I said, "Okay, we're working on the budget. You know, we never had to stay this late before." And I told him, "But Colleen is there, right?" He goes, "Yes." "Mike is there, right?" "Yes." I said, "So they're not asking you to do something that they wouldn't do." And having to cover so many bases, I was so appreciative of how much he learned in the 2 years working for her that it's helped him to be much better today. I, like many of you, were trying to get to either see or talk to her on the phone toward the end when she really wasn't interested in people seeing her or remembering her that way. And I never got to tell her personally, thank you. Thank you for everything you did for my son. Thank you for investing in him. Thank you for helping my wife Joy and I as parents raise a better son with her help and guidance. And jaded people will say, well, of course, he was the Senate president. She was going to treat our son well. Well, I was in D.C. before my son worked for her. And each intern would get to say what they wanted to eat. And this one time it was lau lau, so Rod had to fly in the cooler of lau lau from Hawaii. And every Hawaii Tide kid was invited to her house. I thought it would be like catered or Whole Foods, maybe Costco pre-prepared, and she was baking a ham. She had Peter and Rufino freezing outside on the porch. This was December, grilling steaks and sausages. She was hand-cutting a piece of ahi to stir-fry with vegetables because she knew one of the employees didn't eat red meat. Now, why would she even know that? But she cared enough, and she knew about each of their lives. And then I go, what are they going to do with all of the food? And when they were done, there were 25, 30 of them. The clamshells came out, and she made sure everyone there was able to pack a meal for the next day. And she knew it was challenging for some of the kids. DC is a high cost of living place. But I had never envisioned or imagined Colleen to have that heart for children, because she didn't have children. I didn't see her interact until I got to Washington, D.C., and witness her with her apron doing so much of the cooking herself. I was there in the summer when my sons were playing in the softball on the mall between offices. And she came out to watch and root them on, and when they were done, their favorite hangout spot, Momiji's, where you could get sushi and Japanese food, she bought a bunch of pupus, covered 2 drinks for each of the kids, and then she left. But she wanted to make sure that everybody was fed, that everybody there would enjoy a good time. And so I'll leave it up to the others to talk about her in the workplace and how incredible she was. But as a parent, to see the heart that she had, I hope everybody will realize how much she cared for the children of Hawaii. I hope that that will be part of the memory that you take about who Colleen Hanabusa was and how much she cared. I was looking through some quotes, and to close, I don't know who said this. It wasn't me. I want to be clear. The entire point of life is to take chances on dreams that seem crazy to most, but feel like destiny to you. And I think that embodies the Colleen Hanabusa that I knew, who was unafraid, who was out ahead of us a lot of the time, but unwilling to compromise and give up because she knew what she was doing was right for the people of Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you, Senate President Kochi, for your opening remarks and personal stories. At this time, we welcome the Honorable Mark Bennett, former Attorney General of the State of Hawaii, who now serves as a judge on the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Judge Bennett's relationship with Congresswoman Hanabusa transcended Hawaii's legal and political spheres. The Honorable Mark J. Bennett.
Senate President, John, honored guests, and family and friends of Colleen Hanabusa, aloha. She has achieved success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and women, who has filled her niche and accomplished her task, who has left the world a better place than she found it, who has never lacked appreciation for Earth's beauties or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given the best she had, whose life is an inspiration, whose memory a benediction. Those very famous words perfectly describe Colleen Hanabusa, whose life we remember and whose loss we mourn. When John asked me to speak here about Colleen, I was so touched and so honored. I apologize in advance if I get too emotional, but I will try to speak with what I know Colleen's instructions to me would have been. 1, don't be sad. 2, be short. 3, don't exaggerate. And 4, don't swear too much. Colleen's wonderful traits are almost too long to list. Always honest, she never lied, and you never had to guess where Colleen stood. And what mattered to Colleen was what was right, what was fair, and what was just. The part of her legacy most relevant to this chamber shows just that: the laws that she helped pass, the judges she helped to confirm. And a phrase from Hamlet that I always have associated with Colleen: this above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, that thou canst then not be false to any man. One story, and I hear Colleen right now saying, no more than one story, Bennett, and make it short. My first substantive interaction with Colleen was when she was the co-chair of the Joint Senate-House Investigative Committee to investigate the state's efforts to comply with the Felix Consent Decree. I was in private practice in the late 1990s and the early 2000s and was hired by the federal court to interact with the committee. Colleen and I had many meetings, and after our first meeting, the main thought in my head was that Colleen Hanabusa was a force to be reckoned with. And my second thought was, Colleen and I would always get along, even when we disagreed. And fortunately for me, that proved to be true. Colleen and I would often talk about our backgrounds and how they had shaped us. Colleen was Yonsei, my wife Pat, Sansei. But when we talked about family, Colleen would always tell me, as if I had forgotten, Mark, in your marriage, you are the lucky one, not Pat. Colleen grew up in Waianae with her 2 younger brothers, her parents, and her grandparents. Her parents, Asao and June, owned a gas station. Colleen never forgot her roots. And something that Colleen also never forgot: her maternal grandfather was confined at the Honouliuli internment camp on Oahu during World War II. My wife's relatives on the mainland were also interned. And Colleen and I frequently talked about that and talked about how the main purpose of the law was to do justice, and how the law and justice sometimes failed, and particularly failed Americans of Japanese ancestry, particularly in the now overruled Korematsu case, a case which did the opposite of promoting justice and freedom and was the opposite of the principles on which our nation was founded. Sadly, there are more examples of that: Plessy versus Ferguson, Dred Scott. But Colleen was always concerned about making sure the laws she helped pass would further the cause of justice. And so she worked for that every single day, whether as Judiciary Committee Chair, Senate President, or Congresswoman. As we know, Colleen graduated from St. Andrew's Priory, received from UH a degree in economics and sociology, a master's in sociology, and then a law degree. When Colleen was elected Senate President in 2006, she was the first Asian American woman to preside over a state legislative chamber in the United States. But other things in life mattered so much to Colleen, like her marriage to John. And when I asked John if there was anything in particular he wanted me to mention, what he told me says so much. Every night when John left the hospital, Colleen would ask John to kiss her dogs and take care of them. Colleen's doctor wrote an order that the dogs could come and visit her anytime. John would take the dogs to visit Colleen, and they would jump in bed with her, and Colleen would be so happy. I will say two final things about Colleen. She always knew which way the wind blew. And it is impossible to be a good courtroom lawyer, as Colleen was, without always knowing which way the wind blows. And that talent and skill also came in pretty handy for Colleen as a politician. And finally, Colleen was fearless. She was okay with stepping on toes when toes needed to be stepped on. Abraham Lincoln said, in the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years. Thucydides the Athenian said, when you leave behind, what you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. And finally, Irving Berlin, the song is ended, but the memory lingers on. Colleen was someone whose integrity, wisdom, and dedication left a lasting impression on everyone who was fortunate enough to know her. Whether as a colleague, a mentor, or a friend, she brought the same thoughtfulness and genuine care that defined her life's work. We have lost someone truly irreplaceable, but we are all better for having had her in our lives, and her legacy will continue to guide us and inspire us. Oseh shalom bimramov, hu yaaseh shalom aleinu. May the Lord bring peace and peace to all who mourn. Colleen, you have left us in body, but not in spirit. You are gone, but we will never forget you.
Thank you, Judge Bennett, for your warm remembrances. Thank you, Dr. Salah, for your beautiful rendition of Ave Maria. Walter Dods, Jr. is a business executive, banker, and philanthropist who needs no introduction. He is the past chair, president, and CEO of Bank West, and past chair of First Hawaiian Bank, Hawaiian Telecom, and Alexander and Baldwin. Members and guests, Mr. Walter Dods, Jr.
Honorable President, members of this distinguished body, our congressional delegation, entire congressional delegation, former governors and guests, and John Souza III. We gather today in a chamber that knows the echoes of power, but rarely has it known a force quite like Colleen Hanabusa. They say that leadership is not about how tall you stand, but how much room you make for others. Colleen was small in physical stature. As we all know, she often had to adjust the microphones in every room, but she was a titan in the way that mattered. She didn't just break the glass ceiling, she rebuilt the roof to ensure that it was strong enough to protect everyone underneath it. In 2006, when Colleen became the first female president of the Hawaiʻi State Senate, she didn't just make history, she made a statement. To this day, she remains the only woman to have held that gavel. But Colleen never wanted to be a token or a first for the sake of a title. She wanted the job because she knew she could do it as well or better than anyone else, and she did. Her intellect was a precision instrument. She didn't just read the law, she lived in the nuances of it. I remember seeing her in the heat of a floor debate or a late-night committee hearing while others were searching for their notes. Colleen was 3 steps ahead, citing statutes and parliamentary procedure from memory. She was without question the smartest person in the room, and yet she used that brilliance not to diminish others, but to sharpen the work of this entire body. Her heart was as fierce as her mind. Colleen was the ultimate shield for those who couldn't protect themselves. For women, she proved that a woman's voice didn't just belong at the table, it could lead the table. For labor, she understood that the dignity of Hawaii lies in the hands of its workers. For the underserved, she never forgot where she came from or who had sent her here to serve. She fought for the little guy with the ferocity of a giant. When Colleen was in your corner, you didn't have an advocate, you had an army. But if you truly want to know Colleen, and I want to thank Peter Boylan for sharing Colleen with all of us, You really had to look past the Senate floor, past the halls of Congress, and into the staff offices and into the kitchen. After a grueling 14-day on Capitol Hill, when the political tension was at a breaking point, Colleen wouldn't simply go home. She would cook. She knew that there was a unique kind of healing that happens over a shared meal. She would go around to each staff member and ask them, what meal do you miss the most from home? And then in between reading legislation and renewing memos, she would quietly make her way to specialty stores in Washington, D.C., carefully sourcing out every ingredient, making sure the flavors were right, making sure that it would taste like real kalua pig and cabbage, like the local moko your grandmother used to make. She would spend hours lovingly bringing a piece of Hawaii to life, a warm, humble act of grace for a staff that was far from home, reminding them not just where they came from, but who they were there to represent. To watch Colleen move from high-stakes negotiations to Capitol Hill to the kitchen with her old Waianae t-shirt on, feeding her family, was to see the full measure of the woman. She nourished our laws and she nourished our souls. Colleen didn't care just for her staff. She didn't just care for her staff, She invested in them. She was a sponsor in the truest sense of the word, mentoring young women and men, demanding excellence because she saw in them what they hadn't yet seen in themselves. Some of you may know that my daughter had the honor of working for Colleen during her time in Congress. That relationship never faded. Through the years, Colleen checked in, wrote letters of recommendation, and cheered from the sidelines. When Lauren was accepted mid-career to a Master of Public Health program at Brown, Colleen's response was immediate and characteristic. Unprompted, she said, "Don't forget, save me a seat at graduation. I already reserved the guest room at Congressman Ceciline's home in Providence." Even as she was battling cancer, she insisted on being there. She wanted to attend, she said, to carry the torch of my late wife, Lauren's mother, in person. She said, "I would channel the positives from your mom. I know she would be so proud." It is in these quiet moments, the ones where no one is watching, the ones that are never publicly recorded or applauded, that a person's true character reveals itself. That's just one example of many. Colleen taught us that power is only meaningful when it is used for the powerless. She taught us that competence is a form of respect. She taught us that you can be the toughest negotiator in the state and still be the person who makes sure everyone has a warm meal at the end of the night. The gavel she once held is silent today, but the resonance of her work, the laws she passed, the lives she touched, and the doors she opened will be felt in Hawaii for generations. Rest in peace, Madam President. Aloha.
Thank you, Mr. Dods. At this time, Reverend Soga will provide a closing benediction for this morning's service of remembrance.
Please join me in meditation. The Buddha teaches us thus: all human beings are born into this world empty-handed and without distinction. Through the causes and conditions of life, we come to speak different languages and pursue different vocations. Yet, no person is born lowly and no one is born noble. Every life is equal, sacred, and precious. Today, we gather here in remembrance of Congresswoman Colleen Wakako Hanabusa. Her life was marked by unwavering dedication to seeing all people with equality and by her courage in standing against injustice, discrimination. Let us not forget what she has given to us. Let us carry forward her aspirations, honor her legacy, and pass it on to future generations. Together, may we continue her work, striving to build a peaceful society where all people may live with dignity, share in joy, and greet one another with warm smiles. As we hold this spirit in our hearts, in our daily efforts, in moments when we feel discouraged, and in times when she draws strength to carry on, when we recognize that this strength is a gift we have received from her, then she's truly living with us. Today is a gathering in which we offer our gratitude for the vessel of life that has been entrusted to us. Yet, her strong spirit, her kindness, her memories, her love and compassion, these do not fade away. Her life continues to live on in all those who receive and carry forward her heart. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Let us live with kindness and gratitude beyond words. Lamman love, lamman love, lamman love.
Thank you, Reverend Soga. Michael Formby, Managing Director for the City and County of Honolulu, had a long professional and personal relationship with Congresswoman Hanabusa, serving as her Chief of Staff and colleague on the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transit Board. Mr. Formby offers today's message of appreciation.
Good morning and aloha. So first I want to thank Senate President Ron Kochi and honorable senators for inviting us into your chamber for this remembrance ceremony. Thank you very much. And to the honored guests that are here today, thank you. I think my comments are really a little more than comments of appreciation. I'm up here on behalf of John, and I want to thank John, Colleen's husband, for inviting me to be up here and giving me this opportunity to speak. When I look out at this audience, I believe that there are many people out there that could stand in my shoes because you had a relationship with Colleen like I did, a very special relationship. And one thing about Colleen is she did not have superficial relationships. She was not good at small talk, and I think most people knew that about her. Colleen and I, over the many years that we spent together here and in DC, we eventually became like brother and sister. But I always knew that while slightly older, she was much wiser than me. She never told me that, but it was evident by the advice and the counsel that she gave me. And I think most people understood that about Colleen. She was brilliant on many, many levels. And she was intuitive in ways that most people are not intuitive. She saw things and noticed things that most people did not see and hear. When in DC, I would watch her sit at a desk after a bill came out, and she literally would sit there and page by page turn the bill and read it, sometimes 200 pages. And I said to her one time, because she took no notes, I said, "How do you do that, Colleen?" And she said, I didn't graduate near the top of my law school class because I was smart. I did it because I had a photographic memory. And she would read these bills and then go into committee. And as Justice Bennett has said, she could cite page, paragraph, subparagraph from memory. No notes. Amazing, but extremely intimidating. It's already been mentioned by two speakers that Colleen was a great cook, and she was. She was really a one-woman restaurant. When she cooked, the food was better than what you would buy at a restaurant. It was amazing. And Colleen would show she cared by letting the staff actually help her. So Ainoa, who's here, and Peter, who's here, and probably Dan, who's here, she would let them help. But then she would never let them forget when they made a mess of her house. And they did. She was generous and caring. When in D.C. in 2017, they had the Women's March on D.C. Colleen would drag me along on weekends to craft stores where she would buy pink yarn. And at night and on weekends, she would knit the pink hats. They called them the pussy hats because they had the ears on them. And she would give them to people that came and met her in her office. Countless hats that she would knit at night and just give to women who came to her office to visit her before they went to the march. At night, she folded over 1,000 red cranes on her own time in remembrance of the kidnapped schoolgirls in Nigeria, the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. She wore red every week in Congress. She did that because she cared. But Colleen was also a woman of contrast, brilliant at law, but horrible at driving. Honestly, when I used to ride with Colleen in her car, I would always look straight ahead, but I would side-eye to try to figure out how you could get the car to move like that in the lane of traffic at 60 miles per hour. I could not figure it out. But worse than being with her in the car was to be on the cell phone with her when she was driving. You could literally hear Colleen drive. I don't know how you do that, but you could. And she would tend to call me when she was in the drive-thru at McDonald's. And she didn't go to the drive-thru to buy food for her or John. She went through the drive-thru to buy food for her dogs, Franny and Puppers. And she would order special burgers with no mayonnaise, no mustard, no nothing, just meat and bread. But on the other end of the phone, what I would hear is I would hear her ordering. I would hear the dogs going crazy. I would hear her yelling at the dogs to be quiet. I would hear her talking about case law to me, and then I would hear her trying to get the bag of food through her window. And these are true stories. If you ever saw Colleen's car, the windows of her car were obscured by dog nose prints. She didn't clean them, and you couldn't see through them. It looked like frosted windows. But it was dog nose prints. She loved her dogs. John knows that she was a horrible driver because he repaired her cars. And at the end of the day, her last crash, he got her a car, but he didn't actually let her drive it. He started driving for her. She was a special woman. She had a special love for Hawaii and the people of Hawaii. To John, she was a great wife. And those of us that were close to John, that went to their house, we know that. She was a great wife to John. And to her dogs, little who passed, Franny and Puppers, she was a doting mom. She never fed her dogs canned or bagged dog food. She cooked all the food for her dogs. That's a task that John has inherited. And John did know how special her dogs were to her, and he did manage to get Puppers into the hospital. And there are photos of Puppers on the bed with Colleen at Queens, and that meant so much to Colleen. And thank you, John, for that. And on John's behalf, I do want to thank all the staff, nurses, and physicians at the Queens Hospital for the many, many months that she was there. They didn't just care for her, they cared about her. They truly cared about her. And John was there around the clock. I don't know if anybody's told you this, but when Colleen was at Queens, she watched the LA Dodgers all the time. Shohei Ohtani, she watched him nonstop. John, I don't know how many 100 hours of LA Dodgers you've seen, but a lot. John was a constant in her life. And I want to close with a song, but I'm not going to sing. I'm going to read the lyrics to a song that mean a lot to me. That's what I like about artists, is they can write songs that are interpretive to different people. I won't tell you who wrote this song and who the artist is until the end, but it really is in two parts. I think the first part is how I felt about Colleen, and I think many of you did as well. And the second part to me is about John. So the lyrics are like this. I will be the answer at the end of the line. I will be there for you while you take the time. In the burning of uncertainty, I will be your solid ground. I will hold the balance if you can't look down. If it takes my whole life, I won't break, I won't bend. It'll all be worth it in the end. 'Cause I can only tell you what I know, that I need you in my life. When the stars have all gone out, you'll still be burning so bright. And that's how I feel about Colleen, and I think many of you are here today because she burns bright in your lives. And I will never forget her. The second part of the song to me speaks to what John was to Colleen. Cast me gently into morning, for the night has been unkind. Take me to a place so holy that I can wash this from my mind. If it takes my whole life, I won't break, I won't bend. It'll all be worth it in the end. 'Cause I can only tell you what I know, that I need you in my life, and when the stars have all burned out, you'll still be burning bright. John, you were the burning star in Colleen's life till the day she left this planet. And I thank you for sharing Colleen, taking care of her. She burned bright in our lives, and we will never forget her. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Formby, for your kind and warm remarks. On behalf of Senate President Ronald Kochi, members and staff of the Hawaiʻi State Senate, and Colleen's husband, John, thank you to all of the speakers, participants, and volunteers who helped create this service of remembrance, and to all of you who took the time to attend. A memorial service will be held on Saturday, May 30th, 2026, at Hosoi Garden Mortuary in downtown Honolulu. Visitation is at 1:00 p.m., and the service begins at 2:00. This concludes the formal service of remembrance for the late Senate President and former Congresswoman Colleen Wakako Hanabusa. Thank you all for joining us in this celebration.